Welcome to the third annual First Watch Shamely Awards. I'm Kris Myers, and I will be your MC for this evening's festivities, or whenever you choose to listen to this. At the gym, in the car, or perhaps while baking some fabulous sticky Connery toffee bars. They're amazing, by the way. My own personal recipe. I'll put a link in the description for you. But enough of my baking prowess. We're here to celebrate the best of whatever James and Allan watched last year in 2023. Along the way, some surprise guests will pop in to share some of their own favorites. Alright, let's get this show started before we have to record next year's ceremony. Shamely Awards 2023, Take 3.
We are here to celebrate our year in movie watching. Anything that we watched during the 2023 calendar year from any year in the history of cinema was eligible for a nomination. And it's important to point out that these awards are not titled the best, but rather favorite. Award shows and movie watchers as a community can get so bogged down in this best or worst conversation that we forget to just enjoy the movies we're sitting down to watch. I can acknowledge that something was a monument of cinema excellence, while also noting that I did not enjoy it very much at all. Thank you. The categories are as follows: favorite supporting and leading male and female performances, favorite original and adapted screenplays, director, favorite film, and favorite B movie. That's a very loose categorization. It's however you want it. Like, if there's a movie that didn't quite fit in the favorite film, but you loved it and want to mention it, favorite B movie. Allan has also added a special wrinkle for this episode: the favorite song originally written for a feature film category, the first time in Shamely history. And I also hear he'll be performing them on a kazoo between the awards.
He actually made that up. We will just be using
really
YouTube
doing
clips.
It on a kazoo. I said mandolin, he said no kazoo. Letterboxd told me that I watched 225 movies. 187 of those were new to me. The most startling statistic was 18 of those movies starred Sylvester Stallone.
We love you, Ron! Yeah, I love you too.
How many of them were over the top?
None, actually.
Oh my god, you wasted 2023.
It's totally. I mean, it was all the Rocky movies. Rambo to the point that it's unwatchable.
So, 2 movies in.
We did watch the third one because I had never seen it before. My daughter has an unhealthy relationship with Sylvester Stallone. It's weird. It's not something I ever thought would happen.
It's not weird at all, because this is something I've been noticing, because I watch a lot of YouTube reaction videos. And it is fascinating because these kids in their 20s will watch Rocky and they'll watch First Blood, and they'll come away with Sylvester Stallone is one of the greatest actors in cinema history. Like they will, and it's like realizing like they haven't had like the stop or my mom will shoot moment, like they will not, or the Cobra moment. Like they're still at this point where they've seen his 2 greatest performances. Mm-hmm. And still haven't realized that, oh no, there's a long drop off from there.
Well, then I should mention that I think her fascination derives from Rocky 3.
They usually love all the Rocky movies except for maybe 5. Like it's funny. People really like that character a lot. The best moment in his recent doc, why Rocky was such a big hit. And then they show an older version of him listening to that interview, and he keeps going, it's because it's a romance, stupid. And that's 100% why people love Rocky.
True.
It's
about
true. Yeah.
And consequently, my most watched director was also Sylvester Stallone.
How many of those movies are staying alive?
None.
Oh my god! I've seen it more times than I've seen Saturday Night Fever.
All right. Other than that, I think my list was largely populated by the resumes of our individual anniversary year episodes, I did try and branch out to find some other options whenever possible. But the faithful listener, you will hear a few repeats and also maybe
spoilers
a preview
for upcoming episodes. Yeah,
unless we release these out of order and then forget I said anything.
I don't chronicle my movie watching on Letterboxd, so I actually have no idea how many movies I watched last year. Or,
That's like Luddite movie watching. You realize that?
It's the way I've always done it, and it's the way I'm always going to do it. Damn it!
You need to be more Joe Dante and get that filing cabinet of index cards.
Yeah. Something that made a significant difference in my 2023 was that this was the year I finally ponied up for an all-region Blu-ray player. So a lot of my watching has been like buying stuff from Britain and Europe and that. So that's informed a lot of my movie watching this year. We'll see if that plays out on the list or not.
It certainly does broaden horizons and increase the credit card bill now that I can order anything from anywhere.
Yeah.
And now, here are the 2023 Shamedown Awards for Favorite Supporting Actress.
My first pick is one of the dark horse surprises for my year. It seems anticlimactic that it's coming first on the very first list. Mm-hmm. But my first nomination is Marion Marsh from Svengali, 1931. This was an actress I didn't know by name. And I'd only seen her in Hell's Angels as the girl selling kisses and the Columbia horror entry, The Back Room with Boris Karloff. I couldn't have come up with a name if anybody put a gun to my head.
Yeah.
Maybe this wasn't the best performance I saw this year, but she has a lovely presence and an easy style of acting. She had a 13-year career in Hollywood and featured opposite actors like Barry Moore and Svengali, Edward G. Robinson, William Powell, Warren William, Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, and Joel McCrea before quitting Hollywood in 1942. She made a couple more TV appearances in the 50s before officially retiring in 1959. She makes this list because it was one of the actresses that I was like, I don't know her. I'm going to figure out what she's all about. And I added some of her movies that I hadn't seen to my list to watch, and went down this research rabbit hole just to learn something about her. But it was interesting, and I thought she, like I said, is just a lovely presence in the movie opposite Barry Moore, and she held her own amidst all the scene chewing somehow. Marion Marsh is worth checking out if you haven't heard her name before. Next up on my list is Samantha Morton from She Said 2022 in the Judi Dench version of the nomination. She has one scene, and my God, does she just deliver.
Yeah.
She becomes the centerpiece of a movie that has very little to do with her, and it's just an astounding few minutes of cinema. Next nomination is Aubrey Plaza in Ruse de Guerre. Because I did not know that I needed Aubrey Plaza action hero in my life so badly.
And a bit of a sex pot in it as well.
I know. They really doll her up, and it's kind of surprising the lengths that she goes in the character. And she and Jason Statham have some weirdly kinetic rapport. I would never have gone, let's cast this movie with Jason Statham and Aubrey Plaza. Bingo, eureka, let's make it happen. But I thought the cast did a tremendous job in that movie, and I liked it a lot more than a lot of the critics did. So I had a good time with it, but I seem to like his movies a lot. So watch more Guy Ritchie, people. Next is Silva Casina, because whenever Silva Casina pops up in a movie, she automatically makes this list, I think is what this says, in Judex from 1963. She pops into the movie and engages in a balletic struggle with the villainess, one dressed in a black catsuit, the other in a white circus leotard. And in that moment, I audibly professed my love for Judex to no one in particular. And my winner is Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Just stop! You're good for you. You're figuring your shit out. That's great. I'm really, really happy for you. I'm tired. I don't want to hurt anymore, and for some reason, when I'm with you, it just hurts the both of us. So let's just go our separate ways, okay? Just let me go.
She is the backbone of that mother-daughter conflict, and I mean, Michelle Yeoh is good. She's really good. She's a goddamn legend. But without Shu's antagonistic performance as her daughter, I think Everything Everywhere just feels sort of like a rudderless acid trip. There's just an emotional grounding that she brings to that role in the performance. And I didn't know her from anything other than Marvelous Mrs. Maisel before then. I loved her in there, and I was excited to see this actress have a much bigger career.
Yeah, no, she was amazing in that. So my list starts with Natalie Bayes for Day for Night. She plays the script girl, and basically she gets the nomination just because she was easily my favorite character in that entire movie. But it's mostly for the line where she says, I can see myself dumping a guy for a movie. I can't see myself dumping a movie for a guy. And I just fell completely in love with her, and I just think she was great. And I've seen her in a bunch of other stuff before then, but this is the first time I was like, oh my God, I love this actress. So she gets a nomination for that. My second one is Nancy Kovacs. So when we did our 1963 episode, that ended up being for me, the episode of Nancy Kovacs, because she made 3 movies that year, and I watched all of them for the episode. We both agreed that her Elvis Presley movie, It Happened at the World's Fair, is basically unwatchable. It's probably one of the worst Elvis Presley movies. But if there was an award, just to jump in here, if there was an award for the movies we would not mention, that's on it. Yeah, except I did mention it, so there you go.
Damn it.
But she also did Jason and the Argonauts, which she's really striking in that. But the one she really impressed me was her supporting role in Diary of a Madman. I think she does a really compelling job of being a character who we're supposed to. I'm not sure. We're not supposed to like her, but I ended up really liking her, and where an actor who you really liked in the movie is gone, and all of a sudden it feels empty because of it. But so I definitely think if you're not familiar with Nancy Kovacs, give her filmography a look, because she's really impressive. So for my third nominee is America Ferrera for Barbie. I mean, Margot Robbie is deservedly getting all the attention she deserves for being, I think, one of the most iconic actresses of her generation, having given the defining performance probably of what is going to be her entire career. But I think Barbie wouldn't work without the ballast of America Ferrera. And I think apparently there's a bunch of discourse happening recently about her monologue and how, like, assholes don't like it. And I think it's amazing. I think it is one of the best moments of cinema of last year. It would, and she's a major reason for it being as good as it is. My final of the nominees before we get to the winner is Shirley Eaton for Dentist on the Job. Having picked up the Regent Free Player, I picked up a lot of really inconsequential British comedies, and Shirley Eaton appeared in a bunch of them. And of course, if you're listening to this, you're probably a James Bond fan, so you know her as the girl in gold at the end of Goldfinger. But I found her really charming in this kind of dumb, really silly, like dentist caper comedy. And it made me want to watch a lot of other Shirley Eaton movies, so I gave her nomination for that. And for my winner, I'm going with Evan Rachel Wood in Weird, the Al Yankovic Story.
What brings you here, Madonna?
Oh, I was in the neighborhood. Wanted to see if my map to the stars' homes was accurate.
Guess you won't need a refund then. Is that, all you wanted?
No. I want a lot of things. But The truth is, I'm a big fan of yours.
Join the club.
Have you heard my new single? Like a Virgin?
Oh, I've heard it. I'm curious, is that song autobiographical?
Yes. I technically am a virgin. Except for the fact that I've had a lot of sex.
If you told me that someone could play a pitch-perfect Madonna, I wouldn't have believed you. But honestly, there are times in that movie where if you close your eyes, it's like you're hearing Madonna. She does the comedic aspect of it and just turns it up to 11, making her like really the villain of the movie. But at the same time, if you were to cast anyone in a serious Madonna biopic, she proves that I think Evan Rachel Wood is the only person to cast in the role.
Hi, this is Brian Saur from the Pure Cinema Podcast. I mean, there were a lot of movies that I watched for the first time and enjoyed in 2023, but one of my favorites is a documentary called Pharaohs of Chaos. That's Pharos of Chaos from 1983. It can be found on the Blu-ray for Asphalt Jungle, but it is a documentary all about Sterling Hayden, and the film features discussions with Hayden concerning his life and career, intercut with clips and stills from his films, and it follows him through several long, digressive afternoon conversations with a German film crew aboard a barge in France, which is his boat, and he's living on it in the middle of a river, sort of docked at the edge of a river. He smokes hashish and drinks heavily throughout the documentary, telling the filmmakers that they, quote, have a record of exactly what alcoholism is. Yeah, he goes into all kinds of stories and the Red Scare and HUAC. He talks about his achievements as a sailor. He talks about his film career. He has a great story about Dr. Strangelove. And I just love the way he speaks. He's constantly saying things like, huh? You know, kind of checking in with the people as he talks to them. And it's just delightful. It's very much like his Roger Wade character in The Long Goodbye. And he's got like a big old chin beard, and I could just hang out with him for hours. So it's really a glorious documentary, and I highly recommend it. Pharaohs of Chaos.
And now, here are the 2023 Shamedown Awards for Favorite Supporting Actor.
All right, here's the first of my 1973 previews. I'm talking about Joe Don Baker in The Outfit. There's no better Joe Don Baker than easygoing, devil-may-care 1970s Joe Don Baker playing opposite the super serious and super deadly Robert Duvall. My next nomination is for Buddy Love in The Nutty Professor. No, not Jerry Lewis. Because I refuse to believe that Jerry Lewis was not actually Buddy Love in The Nutty Professor.
Oh, no, like that's the thing that makes Buddy Love so amazing, that it's Jerry Lewis playing himself.
Right. And I'm just not a big Jerry Lewis fan, but I am a huge Buddy Love fan.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things, a sexual rapscallion that shows Emma Stone the carnal pleasures, and then turns him into a petulant man boy when she refuses to become property of the man. In many ways, this is sort of the perverse Barbie story. Next up, Jeffrey Wright in Asteroid City. It's just an amazing cast of actors, and among them, Jeffrey Wright was the only one I missed whenever he wasn't on screen. He is so funny and so deadpan in this role that, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Jeffrey Wright, but it just gave him an extra element that I just don't think I'd quite seen from him before. And my winner, and I don't know if there should be any debate about the best supporting role in any film this year. It's Ryan Gosling in Barbie. He may be the lead. You might think he's the lead, but Ken supports Barbie. the supporting actor award should really just be renamed the Ken.
We go to war.
Against the Barbies?
No, against the Kens.
But we are the Kens.
The other Kens.
Well, we should probably call them something else so it doesn't get confusing.
No, because we'll know what we mean.
But when we're on the battlefield and you say Ken at 4 o'clock, how will I know if you mean us Kens or the other Kens?
Because, my dudes, we attack at 10 o'clock and take advantage of the morning waves.
But not so early, because we're going to want to sleep in.
Right.
But what will we fight with? We have no guns.
Tennis rackets and volleyballs.
And slap fights.
And beach offs.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to admit that I screwed Ryan this year because I've been very open about my Barbie love. So Barbie would have dominated all of my categories. So someone had to lose out. So in the political game, I didn't nominate Ryan for anything, but you're 100% correct. He absolutely, like, if he doesn't get an Oscar nom, like, you know, the whole thing is bullshit. I also have a supporting actor from Asteroid City, but I went with Edward Norton instead because I just loved his performance as this sort of, you know, Southern playwright doing this whole, like, Tennessee Williams sort of thing. Like, I found it strangely moving. I know it's a very divisive film. There's something about having wrapped it up around this narrative around the play, and what we're seeing is actually production of the play that's sort of centering it around Norton. I just found that really moving, and I found that character, the way it was written, I found that really good. Probably my most out of nowhere nomination of the entire show will be Derek Nimmo from The Amorous Mr. Prawn, which is another of the British comedies that I picked up, and it's a really fun, lighthearted farce about basically Joan Greenwood plays the wife of a British major in the army, and he's being forced into retirement, and she's worried about how they're going to pay for things after they've moved out of the barracks. And so while he's away, she hires out their home to these wealthy Americans, and she ropes in her husband's staff to be basically the hotel staff. And Derek Nimmo plays this very effete camp chef who is coming up with all of these really bizarre recipes, and he's really just disturbed by the fact that people, you know, don't appreciate them at the level that they should. And of course, you know, it could be an uncomfortable performance, except for the fact that none of the jokes are landing based on, you know, the fact that he's an effeminate man. It's basically just more about his character as opposed to how his character is. And of course, the twist in the end is that his character ends up marrying one of the hot soldier girls. So it turns out he wasn't gay the whole time. It was just in our heads. I also have a acting nomination from Ruse de Guerre, but I went with Hugh Grant because I just loved his performance as the villain, because I kept waiting for them, because I found him so charming and likable. I could have just as easily nominated him for Dungeons and Dragons. I think we're in, like, the golden age of Hugh Grant performances. I think he's reached a I don't give a fuck point, and he's
the I don't give a fuck supporting cad Hugh Grant is, I mean, I've always been a Hugh Grant fan. I've always enjoyed him as a movie star. Yeah. But I tried to sneak in 6. I was like, I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to put Hugh Grant in here as number 6 for Ruse de Guerre. But I thought the Aubrey Plaza nomination stood for both of them, sort of. Like, they were the reason that movie worked so well.
My final nomination is John P. Ryan for Cops and Robbers. He plays this, like, pretty standard gangster, which is a job that John P. Ryan could do in his sleep. But I just you're going to see a lot of Cops and Robbers. I'll tell you now in this list, because it was easily one of my favorite movies that I watched this year. And he makes a good compelling villain, but also because of him, the film has a really funny capper at the end, and I really had to give it up for him. But my winner is Robert Webber for 10, which is a movie we recently talked about in our Cinema Shelfie episode.
You don't sound happy. Well, I've always gone on the premise that to be happy, you have to feel happy.
How's Larry?
He's traveling abroad. I got a telegram today suggesting he might be willing to come back, but due to some foolish pride on my part, I don't think I'll take him back. Have you seen Sam?
She's going out to dinner with Bernie Kaufman. Thank you.
Don't do as I do, George. Do as I say. Kill if you have to, but don't lose that lady.
Partial credit to Blake Edwards for writing the character this way, but it's a case of a film from the 1970s where it shows that it was possible to depict a gay character in a way that was completely sympathetic, but also completely real and true at the same time. So yeah, I had to give it up to Robert Webber.
My next special guest is one of my favorite writers on film. A.S. Hamrah is the author of The Earth Dies Streaming, link in the notes. He's a critic and writer for N+2, Book Forum, and the New York Review of Books. We had a 45-minute conversation about some of his favorite first-time viewings of 2023. I'll sprinkle a few of them throughout this episode.
So, The Element of Crime is Lars von Trier's first feature film. And it's an existential detective thriller set in one of these semi-post-apocalyptic wastelands. And it's shot in black and white, but with color filters. And it stars a British actor named Michael Elphick and an Asian woman named, I think, May Lai. It's incredibly filled with real dread, and it's very disturbing. And I waited for many years to watch it because I did not like the film he made a few years after it called Europa, which was released in the U.S. as Zentropa. And, it used a lot of the same effects as The Element of Crime, but I thought it didn't work at all. The Element of Crime is, the kind of the opposite of that film. And I recommend it. It's very disturbing movie. For years, I didn't watch the other two films of his, that Europe trilogy, whatever he calls it, the first three films he made. Really ahead of its time. It doesn't seem like a film from 1984. It seems more like a film from, the early 90s. Because it's a little ahead of its time.
Hi, my name is Raquel Stecher, and I'm a film historian and critic. I currently run two websites, one Out of the Past, where I talk about classic movies, and Kel Movies, where I talk about indie and foreign cinema. And I also write for TCM. My favorite first watch of 2023 is the movie Hell or High Water. This movie came out in 2016 and was written by Taylor Sheridan and directed by David Mackenzie. Hell or High Water is very captivating. It's part Western, it's part bank heist drama, and it's set in the barren landscape of West Texas. Chris Pine and Ben Foster star, and they play two brothers who are being chased down by a Texas Ranger played by Jeff Bridges. And this is after they rob a local bank. The film is in no rush to tell its story, and it's devoid of those quick cuts or flashy techniques you'll see in other films. It also eschews many of those cliches and styles you would expect in a movie, and I found that really refreshing. Instead, this is a solid story and explores the nuances of brotherly love, family connection, small town life, and distrust of authority. Pine and Foster play beautifully off each other, and Jeff Bridges is wonderful as his Texas Ranger who takes his job a bit too personally. And watch for Katie Mixon, who has a small but notable role as the small town waitress who takes a liking to Chris Pine. This is a fantastic drama out of Texas, which is a fertile ground of some of the most amazing independent films to have come out in the last couple of decades. I hope you'll give it a watch.
And now, here are the 2023 Shamedown Awards for Favorite Actress.
My first pick is Cate Blanchett from Tar. The more distance I had from Tara, the more I liked the movie itself. In the movies that I saw from 2022, she gave the best performance of the entire year. There's never a moment where you see craft happening. There's never a moment in that movie where you see the actor acting. Next, I have Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. And I know this is a very buzzy pick right now, and I hate being buzzy, but I kind of gauge some of these performances and movies. If you can make me shed that tear, I don't cry, I lose a tear, just one. I lost 2 tears this year. One of them was for Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon. We'll get to the other one later this episode. Next, we have another one of those picks. Now, just to call them those picks because we understand why they're here. We don't need to talk about it. But that nominee is Rosalba Neri from Devil's Wedding Night 1973. Devil's Wedding Night is merely a movie that's about Rosalba Neri being all-powerful. Without her animal magnetism, you would just not believe that Mark Damon would have sex with a bat. It doesn't work without her.
Let's just say I laughed at that for a very specific reason that we'll get to later.
The last nominee before the winner is Margot Robbie, but I did a little cheat here because I love Margot Robbie in Barbie. There's something about the back-to-back performances that she gave in Babylon and Barbie. I did not love Babylon as much as I really wanted to. I loved elements of it, and the parts I loved about it were the more personal characters that we got to see. Brad Pitt's character, Margot Robbie's character, the transformation that she goes through as she arrives in Hollywood. And I think that provides just such an interesting bookend. If we're talking about the years, Babylon came out at the very end of 2022, and then we get to Barbie. So I love how these movies play off each other. And I make the rules, so she's nominated for 2 movies. But my winner is Meiko Kaji for Lady Snowblood, because I love Meiko Kaji. She's now a 2-time Shamie nominee, and this time she gets the award. There's an art of acting while blood geysers are spewing in your face.
死んでいた朝に弔いの雪が降る
I just don't know if there was a better international star at the time for this type of cinema, because if you look back on all of the films that she produced, they've all gained a certain amount of, for lack of a better term, cult notoriety. And I suppose we have Quentin Tarantino as her shepherd, Kill Bill. But I personally thought Lady Snowblood was a better film, and I enjoyed her performance for how little she says and what she's able to do without speaking.
We were very vocal during our 2003 episode that it was a very painful year to get through. But
Kate Beckinsale? Are you nominating Kate Beckinsale?
I am not. I am nominating Jennifer Lopez for Gigli, because while I agree that Gigli isn't a good movie, but I also don't think it deserves its reputation for being as bad as people have said it is. For me, a reason to watch it is I think Jennifer Lopez's performance is genuinely great, and I think it's one of the best performances of her career. So I wanted to highlight that and just say that even if Gigli isn't a good movie, Jennifer Lopez is not a reason for it. My second nominee is Barbara Stanwyck for Christmas in Connecticut, a classic that I only watched for the first time this past Christmas because a friend of mine sent me the DVD because it's one of her favorite movies of all time, and she felt I should see it, and I agree with her, and it's going to be a perennial Christmas watch from now on. It really is.
Catastrophe.
Yeah, it is truly great. And then Rosalba Nari for Lady Frankenstein. So different movie, but same actress. Lady Frankenstein was a case where, like, I just picked up the Severin Gothic horror set and I popped it in expecting it to be pretty cheesy and not very good. And so when I got something that was genuinely compelling and at least as good as any of the mid-tier Hamrah Frankenstein movies, I was really happily surprised. But for me, like, the biggest revelation was Nari, who I had seen in a couple things before this, but this is the one where I was like, oh, okay, I am now a fan of this actress and I'm going to make it my mission to see as much of her work as I can. My last of the nominations is Margot Robbie for Barbie. I haven't seen Babylon yet, so I couldn't nominate her for that. But yeah, no, she definitely deserves all the attention and accolades she's getting for Barbie. And my winner is Elizabeth Taylor for Identikit, aka The Driver's Seat.
I've been looking for you all day. You've wasted my time. What a day. And I was right the first time. As soon as I saw you this morning, I knew that you were the one.
No.
You're my type.
I came here this morning. And when I saw you enter the same hotel, I went away. I wanted to get away.
It's getting late. Come.
Which I think is just a truly astonishing performance. It's my new favorite Elizabeth Taylor performance. I would call it like a pseudo giallo because it's very Italian, it's very stylish, but at the same time, it feels just slightly off compared to other giallos. And one of my favorite novels of all time is Martin Amis's London Fields, which was adapted into a truly awful movie. So don't watch that, but watch The Driver's Seat, which has a very similar conceit to London Fields. But the reason why the film works is because Elizabeth Taylor is just so wonderfully bonkers in the film. Highest possible thumbs up on that one.
Are you saying you prefer this performance to Boom?
Yes, I will say that I prefer, as much as I love Boom, I'm going to go Identikit over Boom.
How in hell can I work with those goddamn dogs and Rudy's barking up a storm? Don't tell Rudy to either shoot them or shut them up!
Hey, this is Jen Johans, and I run the podcast Watch with Jen. I had the most fun this year with Where Eagles Dare, which came out in 1968 from director Brian G. Hutton. Essentially, the chief planner for the Western Front in World War II has been captured. He's being held hostage in an impenetrable Bavarian castle. So Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton decide that they are going to bust out this guy, kill a bunch of Nazis, and win the damn war. And it is so entertaining.
Next up, it's everyone's favorite old movie weirdo, Will McKinley.
Hey, everybody. So usually on this show, I talk about old movies, but my favorite first-time watch of 2023 was a recent classic. Actually, two recent classics. My 6-year-old nephew and I had seen the trailer for Paddington about 10 years ago, and we both hated it. It was nothing like the sweet and lyrical books and BBC stop-motion series I loved as a kid. Fast forward about 10 years, and my now 16-year-old nephew, a fully formed cinephile, made me a list of contemporary films I need to watch if I want to go beyond just being the old movie weirdo. And both Paddington and Paddington 2 were on the list. So I watched them, and boy, was I wrong. Both are excellent. Paddington 2 in particular is just incredible. One of the best and most smartly constructed films I've seen in a very long time. Everybody has something to do. Everybody has an arc. Best of all, Paddington himself goes on a personal journey from comically inept to gently heroic. It's very Buster Keaton-esque, and in fact, the whole film is a gift to classic movie fans, with homages to Chaplin, Busby Berkeley, the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, even a final touching scene that's reminiscent of It's a Wonderful Life. Paddington 2 is better than 1, but both are worth a watch, and it's a good reminder for me to temper my persistent distrust for the contemporary. So make yourself a cup of tea and a marmalade sandwich and watch the Paddington movies.
And now, here are the 2023 Shamedown Awards for Favorite Actor.
First nomination goes to Song Kang-ho for Memories of Murder. I talked about my affection for his character in Memories of Murder already in our 2003 Shamedown. If you want more about that, go check that episode out. His emotional transformation as a small-town cop makes this movie the masterpiece that it is, and it was the only movie to which I gave 5 stars immediately this year. Those don't come easily. Spoiler alert. Second nominee is Roy Scheider for All That Jazz, 1979. It's a legendary performance. I can't add anything new to the accolades. Throughout the film, I just kept wondering how impossible it was to play Bob Fosse for Bob Fosse.
Yeah.
And just that alone, but the fact that he still makes it his own, and it's a powerhouse. It's just top to bottom. He sings, he dances, he's dramatic, he's believable. It's just wonderful. Next, Joe Shishido, Detective Bureau 2-3, Go to Hell, Bastards from 1963, another one I talked about on Cinema Shame. He cemented his place in this list when he stopped performing all of his intrigue with the mom boss to perform a little song and dance on stage with the sexy little minx. I devoured a bunch of his Japanese noir films on the Criterion Channel. Next up is Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers. I really didn't know which eye to look at. If you haven't seen The Holdovers, I encourage you to do so. I expected to like it because I am a fan of Alexander Payne. I'm going to consult... Hold on please while I consult pronunciation. Okay, otherwise we're going to have someone and correct my French. Okay. My Shamelee for best actor, favorite actor, sorry. Gosh, I'm breaking my own rules. My favorite actor goes to Pierre Itex for Yo-Yo, 1965. I will never shortchange a difficult comedic performance. The comedic performance that mixes real human drama is a far harder note to hit than a performance that is purely dramatic. In Yo-Yo, Pierre, hold please, Itex draws from the best of both Charlie Chaplin and Jacques Tati. Yo-Yo was so good that it made me regret all the years I hadn't watched it. I hadn't seen it.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's got a chance to become one of my absolute favorite movies. When I say it's like Charlie Chaplin and Jacques Tati, there really isn't a better way to do it because he's clearly operating in the same French comedic space as Jacques Tati. But it's a much more personal story. Jacques Tati is really commenting on society out. It's not necessarily a personal story. And what Pierre Itax does with this performance in this movie, he's also the director of the film, it goes through, he's from a wealthy family and he loses all of his money and he has to, but he's still going through the same motions as he did as a wealthy man, but he has lost all his money. And it's really focused on the self and very French, very observant. I loved it, and I've loved all of his stuff. I watched through the Criterion set, and Yo-Yo was the movie that really stood out for me, even though there are a bunch that I already want to watch over again.
I'll have to check it out. So before we go into my Best Actor category, I'm going to introduce the first of the Best Original Song nominees, and it's Lost Horizon, written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David, and performed by Sean Phillips. Enjoy a bit of a taste of it, non-kazoo version.
On kazoo.
On kazoo.
Have you ever dreamed of a place far away from it all, where the air you breathe is soft and clean, and children play in fields of green?
My first nominee for Best Actor is Chris Pine in Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. I just feel that Pine has basically cemented his status as one of the great comic rogues of all time. And I really think that he was the heart of Dungeons & Dragons. And it had all of the right elements, but I think really he was the key that made it all work and made it one of the more entertaining comedy adventures in the past little while. My second nominee is Joseph Bologna from Cops and Robbers, who... I'll talk about Cops and Robbers a little later on in some of the other categories, but he's paired up with Cliff Gorman, and they just do a really good job of selling the whole premise and just making that movie work. My other nominee is Kerwin Matthews from Maniac, which is a not very well known Hammer thriller that surprised me by how much I liked it. It's I think it's easily Jimmy Sangster's best screenplay, but I think a major reason why it works is the performance by Kerwin Matthews, who's probably best known for more swashbuckling stuff, like his Sinbad movie. And then for my final of my nominations before we get to the winner, I'm going with Ian Bannon from Station 6 Sahara, which is a movie that we both really liked from one of our episode watches from our 1962 episode. And again, it's a small movie with a small cast, but I think he's the reason why it works. And my winner is Cliff Gorman from Cops and Robbers.
You know what you told George last week? That we could get anything we want, only we control ourselves? Yeah. Well, what the hell? Why don't we? Why don't we what? Pull off a job. I bet with all we know, we never get caught.
You mean like my liquor store?
I mean a big job.
Supermarket.
No, like a bank or a loan company. You ever think about doing something like that?
To bring back all that jazz, Cliff Gorman is probably best known for his small performance in All That Jazz, which he got because he broke out having played Lenny Bruce in a stage adaptation about Lenny Bruce. But when Fosse wanted to make Lenny, he was forced to cast the much more famous Dustin Hoffman in the lead role. So Gorman appearing in All That Jazz was sort of his, apology for not getting Lenny. And Cops and Robbers definitely gives the case of where sometimes you see an actor's career and you just don't understand why they were never bigger than they actually were. And I get the sense that, and this is just completely coming out of my butt. I have no idea if it's reality or not. But
that's the best kind.
But he probably was one of those method actors who was really difficult to work with. Because that's the only reason why I can think of that he didn't do bigger and better stuff as he went along. Because if you look at his career, it's a lot of supporting stuff and a lot of TV, and he just never really reached the heights that he should have.
I'm going to have to add this one to my list because I have not seen it.
It's going to come up again.
I'd be surprised if it didn't.
I'm
Beth Accomando, KPBS Arts and Culture reporter, and I'm also the host of the Cinema Junkie podcast and one of the programmers with Film Geeks San Diego. So a film I watched for the first time in 2023 is called The Face of Another. And not only was this a first viewing, but I had never even heard of this film. I was a guest on the Projection Booth podcast and asked to talk about Woman in the Dunes. So I was doing some research on the director, Hiroshi Teshigahara, and I came across The Face of Another. So it's about a man who is disfigured and finds out that he can actually have a doctor put on a new face for him. And rather than doing this just so he can go back to a normal life, he decides that this is his way of now being able to commit crimes and do things that can't be traced back to him. It harkens back a little bit to Eyes Without a Face in terms of kind of these low-tech special effects that are done, but there's such imagination and originality and audacity to it that it's stunning. So this was a first viewing for me, and I just fell in love with it and adored it.
Greetings, fellow cinema shamers, or is it shamies? I don't know. Would our hosts be the shamers and us listeners the shamies? But I digress. This is Eric Jones here. 2023 was a Marilyn Monroe year for me. The Criterion Channel had a bunch of her movies on, and I took advantage. How to Marry a Millionaire, that was my favorite first time watch of 2023. Funny, and what I loved was I wasn't expecting a CinemaScope romantic comedy. When I saw how CinemaScope how it opens and how wide and vibrant it was, I was just like, wow, I couldn't believe it. So 1953's How to Marry a Millionaire, Marilyn Monroe, Betty Grable, and Lauren Bacall. Check it out if you got the opportunity. Really funny stuff.
And now, here are the 2023 Shamedown Awards for Favorite Adapted Screenplay.
First up, I have The Servant, 1963, written by Harold Pinter, based on Robin Mom's 1948 novella of the same name. I thought that was a really crafty upstairs-downstairs situation where the downstairs gets a measure of comeuppance on the upstairs. But it doesn't turn out all as well as they hope in the end. Second, I have Poor Things from 2023, written by Tony McNamara, based on Alasdair Gray's novel Poor Things, episodes from the early life of Archibald McCandless, MD, Scottish Public Health Officer. Based on that name alone, I feel like I have to read the book now. It's a really complex screenplay, and people might take exception because, as I said before, it is sort of rambling and lacking form. But when you do that and you still make a movie that's wildly entertaining, I've got to give you credit. Next up is The Last Detail, 1973, written by Robert Towne, based on the 1970 novel of the same name by Daryl Ponixan. We'll go with, if Daryl, if you're out there, feel free to send hate mail. The script was my favorite part about that movie. The Jack Nicholson performance is great. Next is Lilies of the Field from 1963, written by James Poe, based on the same novel by William Edmund Barrett. I mentioned in our 63 episode that movie really surprised me and wasn't at all what I had anticipated, and credit goes to that screenplay. And the acting, but the screenplay was what really did it for me. And my winner for a favorite adapted screenplay is the out of nowhere pick, Christopher Robin, 2018, written by Alex Ross Perry, Tom McCarthy, Alison Schroeder, adapted by material and characters created by A.A. Milne and E.H. Shepard.
Oh. What to do, what to do, what to do.
What to do indeed.
Who?
Christopher Robin.
No. No, 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 no. You can't be here. This can't be happening. Oh, God, stress.
It's not stress.
God, I'm stressed.
It's Pooh.
I'm so exhausted. Evelyn warned me.
I like to be warmed. Warmed and cozy.
I've cracked. I've totally cracked.
I don't see any cracks. A few wrinkles, maybe.
I mentioned before that there were 2 tears shed in movies this year, or watching movies. One was Killers of the Flower Moon. The other one was watching Christopher Robin. Yes, that's right. It didn't look like a version of Winnie the Pooh that I wanted to watch, but I was wrong. I was convinced by my children to watch it. They said, you have to see this movie. I said, why? And they said, you just have to. And how can I argue with that logic? What they do with your sentimentality for the Winnie the Pooh character is where the magic is. And I was a doubter. I said there's no way it can be any good, but I was wrong. I really enjoyed Christopher Robin.
I'll have to check it out, because I avoided it because if it's so rare for me to hate a movie, but if you were to ask me a movie that I hated, it would be Saving Mr. Banks. And I sort of associate it as the same sort of...
It is not.
No, it is not? Okay.
It is not. This is a really sincere use of the original characters with a grown-up Christopher Robin who's trying to find himself again. And what they do with Winnie the Pooh's relationship with Christopher Robin is sort of a remarkable piece of writing. I tell you that I doubted it. I never expected to like this movie, but it was kind of wonderful.
I'll have to watch it. Well, I'll do a double feature of it and Blood and Honey, which I haven't watched yet either. So, before I get into my list, we'll go with my second nominee for Best Original Song, and that's "Cops and Robbers" by I don't know if it's Michel or Michael Legrand. It's Michel.
Michel.
Michel Legrand.
It's French. We have to have our French translators. We're not.
And this is, of course, from the movie Cops and Robbers. This is of all the songs, this is the earworm that I just couldn't get out of my head. It's a case where in the movie it's similar to what Robert Altman did with The Long Goodbye, in which all of the music you hear is basically just a version of the theme. And it's a case where I think that's why I just haven't been able to get it out of my head since I last heard it.
It's a word that cops and robbers. It's alright. It's alright.
My nominees for adapted screenplay are Brian Clemens, Brian Forbes, for Station 6 Sahara, which is based on a play by John Martet. We talked about Station 6 Sahara already in one of our past episodes, so you can listen to that. I watched it after James recommended it, and it definitely is worth seeking out. My second nominee is Rafael Lacapria and Giuseppe Petroli Griffi for Identikit, which was based on The Driver's Seat by Muriel Spark. As I talked about with my Elizabeth Taylor win, I think it's a great movie, and I think their screenplay is a major reason for it working as well as it did. My darkest horse of the adapted screenplays is Dick Randall, Mel Wells, and Edward DiLorenzo for Lady Frankenstein, based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Totally unexpected how much I would end up liking this movie, so I had to give them a nom. My fourth and final nomination before we get to the winner is Anthony Crimmins and Nicholas Phipps for The Amorous Mr. Prawn, which was based on Phipps' play of the same name, which is it's a totally frivolous, lighthearted British comedy farce, but it worked for me, and it's one of my favorite kinds of movies, so I had to give it a nom. And the winner is Donald E. Westlake for Cops and Robbers, based on his novel of the same name.
Boy, I thank God I got out of that rat race 5 years ago. Everybody pushing everybody around. Everybody chiseling a buck. Even the cops tearing off a little here and there. It's a natural result of congestion.
It's the way of the world, George.
Not out here.
Out here, just like any place else.
You know, you guys think that everybody is a crook. It's being a cop in the city that gives you that idea. Seeing all that corruption, having a little part in it.
You got a bug up your back about something? That's all right, Joe. What's he getting at? Not getting at anything. Hey, George, a lot of civilians can't quite make it on their salaries.
You see what I mean? I mean, the city distorts your mind. I mean, you think everybody's a crook.
And
so Westlake. Okay, well, you didn't say that in the beginning.
This like 73 was a big year for Westlake. I think there were 3 adaptations of his movies that year, and he's had a couple. And I tend to really like his stuff, but I tend to like the low-key comic stuff. Like Cops and Robbers is definitely my favorite of the stuff based on his work, and definitely of the stuff he's written, it's my favorite. I think if you are to seek out anything by him, this is the one to start with, and then sort of move on from there, because some of them are pretty hit and miss. And it depends on the director working that. I actually am a big fan of Hot Stuff, the Dom DeLuise comedy that he wrote. But it also feels very much like a Dom DeLuise comedy, so that can put people off.
If you put Dom DeLuise in the movie, it ceases to be anything but a Dom DeLuise comedy.
Well, but also he also directed it, so it is the most Dom DeLuise comedy.
Take that for what you will. It might be damning. I don't know.
Joseph Bologna and Cliff Gorman played two cops who are friends. Bologna is a beat cop, and Gorman is a detective. One day, just on a random whim, Bologna just decides to rob a liquor store in his like police uniform, and he gets away with it because he's a cop, and who's going to believe that a cop robbed a liquor store? And so they decide that they're gonna do one big score to retire from being cops. And one of the major reasons, beyond just sort of the direction, which we'll get into later, that the reason why I love the movie is just it has some twists that you don't see coming, and they just really work, and they really make the movie a lot of fun. Like it's definitely more of a comedy than anything else, which you might not expect from Westlake. But I think that is the thing that makes it work, is that it is really, really funny.
And here's a slightly more unorthodox pick for favorite viewing of 2023 from A.S. Hamrah. Something that's not exactly a movie, but we have Mitch McConnell freeze press conferences. Now, tell me why you enjoyed those.
Well, it's not that I enjoyed them. So, throughout the year, one sees a certain amount of stuff that's not a movie, but that impresses itself on your mind, as kind of as cinema. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the two Mitch McConnell press conferences where he just stopped as if his switch had been turned off and paused and stood there for a minute and a half, or I think more in one case, and just did nothing, totally frozen, was something I have never seen before in American politics or in American life at all. And it was just such a stark illustration of how America is a gerontology controlled by very old men who are infirm and who should not be, running the country or even working in jobs anymore at this point. So there's something monstrous and scary about the continued existence of Mitch McConnell and people like him in American politics, on both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And then, recently Trump had that thing where he had all those sores on his hand. He was waving and he had all those red sores on his hand.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, there's something, it's like a horror movie.
And now, here are the 2023 Shamedown Awards for Favorite Original Screenplay.
First up, we have multiple nominee Memories of Murder 2003, written by Bong Joon-ho and Shim Sung-bo. Second, I have Asteroid City, written by Wes Anderson. I think you can just assume I'll nominate a Wes Anderson screenplay every year that he releases a film. Just write it in now. Next, I have The Holdovers, written by David Hemmingson. I mentioned the performance, but the screenplay does a remarkable job with all the supporting characters. Next up is All That Jazz, 1979, written by Robert Allen Arthur and Bob Fosse. And my winner is Barbie from 2023, written by Greta Gerwig and Nora Baumbach, because, yes, you can do that with a Mattel property.
No, it's a miracle. It's very special.
Hi.
Oh, hey. You've caught me reading.
Oh. I've been thinking.
Mhm.
Kenland?
Kendom.
Kendom.
Kendom Land.
Land of
the free and the men.
Right. Well, this place
Kendom
is
Land.
really great. And the Kens really are just better at ruling than the Barbies ever were.
Well, we just took patriarchy and, made a patriarchy.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking
Yes?
I'm ready to be your long-term, distance, low-commitment, casual girlfriend, if you'll still have me.
Could you just hold on for 1 second?
Oh, okay.
Sublime! I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Oh. Please?
Okay. Come on in. I'll play the guitar at you.
Oh, yay!
Well, before I get into my list, we'll go with my third nominee for Best Original Song, which, speaking of Barbie, was, I think, the song that hits the hardest in Barbie. That's What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish and Phineas, as performed by Billie Eilish.
But on Kazoo.
And then my nominees for Best Original Screenplay are Lionel Hauser, Adele Comandini, and Aileen Hamilton for Christmas in Connecticut. Jameson Brewer, John Fenton Murray for Arnold, which I thought was a really fun horror comedy that was just released last year on Blu-ray by Vinegar Syndrome. If you are a Vinegar Syndrome person and was wondering about picking that one up, I highly recommend it. It will come up in a later episode. Third nominee is Jimmy Sangster for Maniac, which I basically gave just because I usually think Jimmy Sangster screenplays are terrible. So the fact that I really liked Maniac just surprised me so much that I felt I had to give him a nom just because for once he did something that was really special. And probably this is going to be my weirdest nomination, but it's like a movie that I've watched 3 times in a row now, and I think people might not even consider it a movie, but I do. And that's a YouTube documentary called This Is Financial Advice by Folding Ideas, which was written by Dan Olson and Nathan Landell. And basically it is a expert deconstruction of the whole GameStop meme stock fiasco, the movie Dumb Money, based on the same premise. They previously, I don't know if Landell was involved, but Olson before this, the year before, did an even better doc called Line Goes Up, Up, which was about NFTs. The defining takedown that basically deconstructs every possible argument in favor of them has been made, and if you still believe in it, then you are a delusional cult member. And that's very much the case with This Is Financial Advice. So I had to give it a nom for that. And my winner is Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach for Barbie, because that screenplay is a miracle, and it's one of those cases where I can get angry listening to people praise it. Oh, it's cute. No, you are not getting the level this is working on. Like, there is no critic who I disagree more often than Richard Brody. And Richard Brody loved Barbie. And that's because he understood, like I did, that it was basically a big studio Godard film. Like, it is working on that level of cinema deconstruction. And you will see more Barbie as we go on.
Like, we have to always be extraordinary. But somehow we're always doing it wrong. Like, you have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money, because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining.
My name is Dan Delgado, and I am the host of The Industry, a documentary podcast exploring overlooked film history. And in 2023, my favorite new watch was Pride and Prejudice. This is the 2005 version with Keira Knightley and Tom Wambsgans as Mr. Darcy. And this is exactly the kind of movie that maybe just 5 years ago I would have never watched. And now I feel like I need to see every Jane Austen / period film ever made. And if you haven't seen it, or you're period averse as I was, I would suggest that you look past that and give this one a chance, because it is endlessly charming and entertaining.
And now, here are the 2023 Shamedown Awards for Favorite Director.
In my criteria for what it means to be my favorite director, I think it should be said that I believe that the director has total control over the ultimate project, the ultimate production, that's got such a singular style that can only come from a director that has a singular vision. That said, my first nominee is Bong Joon-ho for Memories of Murder 2003. Not surprising, it's been in most every category. Next up, I have Greta Gerwig for Barbie. George Franju for Judex 1963, because when you attempt to remake a early silent serial and you do it as faithfully to the serial as possible, I just feel like that's a remarkable achievement in aesthetic. Once again, we have Pierre Itax for Yo-Yo, 1965. And then, finally, I could not help but give this award to Bob Fosse for All That Jazz.
Thank you, wonderful. Folks, what can I tell you about my next guest? This cat allowed himself to be adored but not loved. And his success in show business was matched by failure in his personal relationship bag. Now, that's where he really bombed. And he came to believe that work, show business, love, his whole life, even himself and all that jazz was bullshit. He became numero uno game player to the point where he didn't know where the games ended and the reality began. Like to this cat, the only reality is death, man. Ladies and gentlemen, let me lay on you a so-so entertainer, not much of a humanitarian, and this cat was never nobody's friend. In his final appearance on the great stage of life, you can applaud if you wanna, Mr. Joe Gideon.
Yeah, no, it's my favorite movie of all time, and I think sometimes that surprises people, but I get something new out of it every single time I've watched it, and I probably watch it at least 2 to 3 times a year. And it's one of those films where like something new always comes up, and I always understand something new about it. But also just the fact that he was willing to make a movie about himself, where he's such an asshole.
It's so introspective and not flattering at all. And like the amount of just balls that it took for him to do it in that fashion. Yeah. Like, it's not just a drama. We'll make it a musical. It's not just a musical. It's a comedy. Yeah. And when you put all these things into it, it's impossible to conceive of what the movie is. I mean, you can describe the film to people. Yeah. And indeed, when I had not watched until this year, based on my list, right? And I felt like I knew what it was going to be because I'd read about it, I'd listened to people talk about it, I've seen clips about it, but nothing really did it justice until I saw what he was able to accomplish in the movie itself. And it just goes to show you, I mean, Cinema Shame exists for a reason. We have these barriers that we put up. We are movie fans. We are movie watchers. We've seen a lot of movies. I would say we've spent the majority of our lives thinking about or watching movies. So it's very easy for us to come up with these preconceptions about what we expect a movie to be based on what we've been told or what we've read. And it took me this project to sit down and it's like, you know what? I have not seen this movie. For shame, I need to watch it. And it was everything and more. And I talk about the singular creative vision and what gets diluted when there's multiple perspectives or you're pandering to come up with a palatable version of this idea that crosses demographics to get that box office return. It is a movie that does not give a fuck about appealing to a broad demographic. And in doing so, cemented itself as a movie that could possibly have a message or appeal to everyone. And I don't know, certainly not in recent memory, have I seen a movie that felt more personal. Like it came from some visceral, guttural place that is a region that's untapped by the conscious mind. When you're writing that or getting that on the page or getting that on the cinema, on the movie screen, it's remarkable that translated so well.
And I also think that it's one of the most revelatory examinations of the creative process, because it is basically examining his creative process and seeing how he went from, from the idea that I'm all washed up, I will never have a good idea, ever again, to creating something that is completely brilliant, but also at the same time non-commercial. And knowing that this thing that I've created that is brilliant is never going to be seen in the way that it deserves to be seen because the producers are never going to go for it. And it's just, I could go on forever talking about this movie. Like I said, it is my favorite movie of all time. And I identify with Joe Gideon, who is Bob Fosse's stand-in a way I do so few other characters, even though we are nothing alike. And I think probably it is that sense of self-flagellation, because there's been a movement I've seen a couple times now where Bob Fosse is listed in the name of like filmmakers you're no longer allowed to acknowledge that you like because of how they were as real people. And I think that's probably based mostly on the recent Ryan Murphy, Gwen Verdon, docuseries. And the thing that fascinates me about Fosse as a person, that this sort of dismissal of him completely ignores, is that, yes, he was a womanizer who basically cheated on every woman he had a relationship with. But every single woman he cheated on and had a relationship loved him till the day he died. And continued working with him after he cheated on them. And they are in All That Jazz, or they are depicted in All That Jazz. Like that to me, that is the thing that sort of makes him remarkable as a person and not just a director, was that he embodied these flaws in a way that made him endearing rather than despicable. And I think that's the sort of the thing that makes All That Jazz so special, is that you're watching a movie about a jerk and you love him and are devastated by the end. So speaking of musicals, I'll go with the last two of my Best Original Song nominations, because we should wrap this category up before we get to the best movies. My fourth nomination is for The Ballad of Johnny Cool by Billie Mae, from the movie Johnny Cool, performed by Sammy Davis Jr.
Tells the tale of his life. They say Johnny was meant to be and content to be mixed up in sorrow and strife. He lived by the gun and by the knife. Johnny Cool, Johnny Cool. He lived by the gun and by the knife.
And the final nominee is Arnold, the theme song from Arnold, written by George Dunning and Andrew J. Fenedy, performed by Shani Wallace.
And let me count the ways through the nights and days. Arnold, you and me, darling Arnold. Warm, sweet Arnold. Through the night, through the days.
And the winner is Cops and Robbers by Michel Legrand from Cops and Robbers. And now you've heard the clip, you will understand why I haven't been able to get this song out of my head since I watched this movie a couple months ago.
Cops and robbers, seems like everyone wants more. Everybody wants to be one. Everybody wants to score. They're getting there.
And now for Best Director, my nominees are Aram Avakian for Cops and Robbers. Avakian is probably best known for 11 Harrow House, which is one of my picks for most underrated movies of the 1970s. Cops and Robbers I don't think is quite as good as 11 Harrow House, but it's close. And it actually was only a couple days ago that it occurred to me what it was about his direction that, especially in Cops and Robbers, that so appealed to me, and that a working class American Jean Renoir, in that it feels very real and naturalistic while also feeling absurd and farcical and comedic at the exact same time, which is a trick I don't know how you do it. Like, there's a specific tone that the movie hits that it just strikes me as like very difficult to deliberately pull off, but he did it and it works really well. My second nominee is Giuseppe Petroli, Griffey, for Identikit, aka The Driver's Seat. My big dark horse is Mel Wells for Lady Frankenstein. Mel Wells is most famous for playing Mr. Kushnick in the original version of Little Shop of Horrors. His directing career didn't amount to much, but I really loved Lady Frankenstein. My final of the nominees is Peter Godfrey for Christmas in Connecticut, which is really a classic that deserves to be a classic, and it almost makes me want to watch the remake directed by Arnold Schwarzenegger just to see what Arnie did with the same material. It's supposed to be not very good, but we'll see. And the winner is Greta Gerwig for Barbie.
There is like a moment where you're like, wow, I'm way out there. Like, if this doesn't work, It will be very public.
People are going to notice.
It will be an extremely public one. You know, you might as well take those big swings. I mean, literally the worst thing that can happen is it's terrible, nobody likes it, and it bankrupts a studio.
That would be bad.
No, of course. But like, how bad? Yeah. You know, as bad as not making it? You know, maybe not.
I think she was just working on a whole other level this year, and I actually haven't even seen Little Women yet, so I'm behind on my Greta Gerwig, so I'm going to have to go back and rewatch her because that was a transformative movie. I think that did a lot of things that movies are supposed to do and very rarely do.
I don't know if I should admit this, but Gerwig's Little Woman is the best version of Little Women.
I don't deny it, and honestly, I think part of the reason why I haven't seen it was because I'm such a huge fan of the Gillian Armstrong version. That I was sort of like, well, I already have my Little Woman. I don't need other people. I don't need the new one. But now that I've seen Barbie, I'm like, maybe I do need the new one.
I think you do. Sorry. There's room for two.
Yeah. But George Cukor can go fuck himself.
And now, here are the 2023 Shamedown Awards for Favorite Film.
Okay, we're at the big time now. This is the main attraction. If you're still listening, you're 3 martinis down, you're on the floor, you just want it to end. I promise we're getting there. But first of all, we have our favorite movie. I think these have all been mentioned probably before.
Yes.
They won't be a surprise, but pretend. Just pretend they're surprises. My first pick is Barbie 2023. Second, this is the one that surprised me. Right? I made my list. This is the one that just kept surviving all the cuts. Lilies of the Field, 1963. All That Jazz, 1979. Yo-Yo, 1965, and my favorite movie that I watched in 2023 was Memories of Murder, 2003. I've talked about it on another episode. I talked about it twice before tonight. We'll just leave it there.
Same with mine. Mine are all repeats. Cops and Robbers, Christmas in Connecticut, Identikit, This is Financial Advice, and the winner, Barbie.
I'm Margot Robbie, and this is Young Hercules, or Noah from The Notebook.
Oh.
Or Ken from Barbie.
Oh, good. So it's a public shaming, is what this is.
No, it's a
not
list of my favorite things.
Are we really to believe Young Hercules is one of your favorite things?
It's my favorite thing you've done.
Ouch. My first impression of Ken was the title page of the script, which said Barbie and Ken, and then and Ken was scratched out. And then the next was, this is the hardest part I'll ever play.
Did you really think that?
Yeah. I mean, how do you approach playing a 70-year-old crotchless doll? There's no research you can do for that. There's no one you can shadow. There's no documentaries you can watch. There's no books written about it.
I do have one that hasn't been mentioned in my B picture category, so there is one new one there.
I have 3 that haven't been mentioned.
And now, favorite B movie.
My first pick is Tony Arzenta / Big Guns from 1973.
Is that the Alain Delon movie?
It is.
It is. I was going to watch it for the 1973 episode, but I ended up watching so many good movies for 1973 that my list filled up and I didn't have to watch it.
Well, I watched this one because I read a review. It's also called No Way Out, by the way. Just add another. It's Tony Arzenta / Big Guns / No Way Out from 1973, directed by Duccio Cesare. And I had read I don't even know where I read it, but I was searching for movies to add to like the must-watch list for my 73 viewing. And someone somewhere compared Tony Arzenta / Big Gun / No Way Out to Jean-Pierre Melville. And I'm like, fuck you. How dare you? This is directed by Duccio Tessari, who I like, but he's not Jean-Pierre Melville. They were not wrong. It's like Duccio Tessari channeled Jean-Pierre Melville for this particular movie. There's particular camera movements, there's stagings and blocking that I'm like, I don't understand where this came from, you semi-hack director that produces unbelievable occasional trash entertainment. But there it is. I really enjoyed Tony Arzenta Big Gun / No Way Out, and it's getting a Blu-ray release from someone that I forget, but it's coming, and I already ordered it. Next on my list is The Descent from 2005. B-movie because I don't have anywhere else to put it, but I wanted to mention it at some point during this episode.
No, that's
Next, well, it's one of those things. I almost put Neil Marshall in the Best Director category because he qualified, but
yeah.
I mean, where was I going to put him?
Exactly. Yeah.
Total control over your production, creating this perfect sense of claustrophobia. It was the director's horror movie. Next up, Detective Bureau 2/3 Go to Hell, You Bastards.
Which should win for best title.
Yes, we'll just rename the category. The Detective Bureau 2/3 Go to Hell, You Bastards. I had a lot of fun with that movie, and you should watch it. It's good times. Next, I have the first half of Cobra from 1986, but not the second half. We have to be very clear that as soon as they leave the city, this conversation ends, okay? The first half of Cobra, fantastic. He cuts his pizza with scissors. Second half, I don't know what they were thinking.
Here's some trivia. Who played the Sylvester Stallone part in the remake of Cobra?
There's a remake of Cobra?
Well, it's based on a novel, and there were 2 adaptations of the novel.
Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone.
It was Stephen Baldwin, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's the Cindy Crawford starring vehicle. They're both based on the same novel.
That's based on the same thing?
Yeah.
Fair Game?
Fair Game is based on the same novel as Cobra.
I mean, I've seen both movies.
It's closer to the novel than Cobra is.
I can't believe that the first half of Cobra is based on anything but a fever dream.
Well, it's funny because he changed the story so much that they actually did a novelization of Cobra, even though it was based on a novel, and Sylvester Stallone wanted the novelization to be credited to him, and not the woman who actually wrote the novel that the movie was based on. That's one of my favorite. I don't like Cobra much as a movie, but the trivia behind it is just so fascinating to me. It also has one of my favorite 80s music montages, and that's the Angel in the City, where Bridget Nielsen is posing with all the robots. That's pretty great stuff.
I just don't understand why we couldn't keep it there. Why did we have to leave? Anyway, there's a winner here, and that winner is Lady Snowblood from 1973. Not to be upstaged by the first half of Cobra.
Well, my nominees, I got one new one. Maniac from 1963, which I've already mentioned. It's a really, really good Hamrah thriller. I recommend people check that out. My second nominee is Arnold, which is a really fun horror comedy. Already talked about it. Definitely seek it out. My new one is Horrors of the Black Museum, which I watched for the first time this year. It was one of the ones that I picked up on a Region B disc. Michael Gough almost made my Best Actor list. He ended up getting kicked off because I wanted to put Chris Pine on there. But it's just a really fun villainous performance in a really bonkers movie that there are elements of it that really make you surprised that it was made in 1959, because it's quite dark and quite violent in ways that we're not used to from films from that era. So I highly recommend it. It's pretty bonkers. My final nominee of the nominees is Dentist on the Job, which, again, is not really even a good movie, but I just was so utterly charmed by it that I had to throw it up. And my winner, I went with a different lady. I went with Lady Frankenstein.
Joseph Cotton is Baron Frankenstein, the scientist who dared to create a monster. Sarah Bay is Lady Frankenstein. She's beautiful, she's evil, and she'll do anything for love. She creates a new, more terrifying monster, and only the monster she creates can satisfy her strange desires. No man can escape her web of terror. There has never been a movie like Lady Frankenstein.
That's nice. I like that symmetry. Lady Snowblood and Lady Frankenstein.
So now everyone has to write in and tell us which ones we got egregiously wrong, and how dare we not nominate.
Listen, I nominated the first half of Cobra, so I don't think you can really take anything I say all that serious.
I nominated a YouTube video.
That's true. That's true. There were a few, I should mention, that it kind of killed me not to mention at some point. So this is like at the end of the show while everybody's filing out, we're just name dropping all the things that didn't quite fit in the show, and the credits are rolling. And like, I'd like to mention Christina Lindbergh's performance in Thriller: A Cruel Picture, even though I think the movie kind of sucked.
Oh my God. It's a good thing. It's a good thing you didn't. I'm hearing this now because we are about to fight. We are about to fight.
That's not entirely true. I'm oversimplifying. She was the best part about the movie.
She's amazing in an amazing movie that every decent person understands is amazing.
She's amazing. I did have qualms.
It's a 5-star movie.
No. I only mentioned Tiptoes in passing, but it's a shame that we couldn't squeeze any nominations out of Tiptoes.
We're not the Razzies, so we don't pull that shit. So
I did want to mention Ryan Gosling's performance in First Man, but he was nominated elsewhere, so I really couldn't bring it up.
Yeah.
Well, Sally Hawkins in The Lost King, I really enjoyed. I wanted to mention her again. She was on the short list. She just didn't survive. Poor her. Oh, the Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow scene could have gotten a mention, but I didn't have an award for striptease.
That was what I was going to mention. I was going to mention the best theatrical experience of 2023.
Well, we can still do it. We're still recording.
Yeah. But for me, it was the Eras Tour, the Taylor Swift concert documentary, which I think is as good as Stop Making Sense and the Last Waltz. The other
the hell you say.
I truly mean it. I found it to be a very moving experience, and it reminded me of the stories my mom used to tell me of her going to see Elvis Presley movies when they were new, and just the girls just losing their minds every time he appeared on screen.
You know why I didn't go see the movie?
It's because he got to see the fucking concert in person. Yes, he will hold that over for me the rest of my life. The one thing I'm telling myself is that because the concert movie basically puts you on the stage
you
with
had the
her,
better seat.
I had the better seat than you did, because I saw your view. So that's the one reason why I feel like I don't feel completely terrible that I didn't get to see it live like you did, is because I ultimately got to see her up close and, all sexy and sweaty.
Mm-hmm. I didn't see any sweat.
Yeah.
And finally, I'd like to thank all of our special guests that appeared on today's Shamedown Award episode. Beth Accomando, A.S. Hamrah, Jen Johans, Will McKinley, Brian Saur, Raquel Stecher, Dan Delgado, and Eric Jones. Go forth and support everything they do. And one more time, here's Kris Myers.
Mercifully, that is the end of the third annual First Watch Shamedown Awards. Want to let us know your Shamedown picks for 2023? Send us a message on Twitter at CinemaShame or Blue Sky on Instagram at CinemaShame Podcast. Be sure to stick with us through another year of righting wrongs and watching shames. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the CinemaShame Podcast.
You have chosen wisely.